Andrew, thanks very much for giving us this time. Again, we want to bring one of these sort of very practical church planning questions to you. As far as you're concerned, when should a church plant start putting aside money for the next church plant? I mean, when should they be that outward focused?
Churches should be outward focused from the very beginning, but how they express that outward focusedness is the issue. And I actually think there's a bigger conceptual thing that's worth unpacking. Bear with me. So putting aside money. One of the conceptual things that I think is very important to get for all kinds of reasons is that a church's money is not the money sitting in the institution called church's bank account. The church's money is sitting in every church member's bank account. So you've got to do a conceptual shift and think, just because it's not in EV Church's account doesn't mean that we haven't got any money. Every member of EV is holding our money. Do you know what I mean? They're the body of people who their money and their accounts is EV's money. And that conception is important to get hold of for a number of reasons, for a bunch of reasons. One is that you mustn't think because you haven't got money in the bank, your church doesn't have money. And you must avoid that whole kind of rainy day scenario where let's start, building into our budget money to put aside for a rainy day. No. Your money put aside for a rainy day is already in the bank accounts of EV Church, your church. It's sitting in everyone's accounts. All you need to do is ask for it. So just we need to get our heads out of that problem. So in terms of how much should I begin to put aside for a church plant, I've never operated like that, and I wouldn't say it's wrong to, but the danger is you can inadvertently teach the congregation, the church plant group, something across purposes. That is to say, I want them to think their money is our money, EV Church. And if I start saying, let's start putting a bunch of money away for the church to plant a church with it, I'm starting to say to them, your money's not our money. We need to get your money into our money. So I'm actually beginning to teach them something cross purposes. So I've never put money aside like that for any purpose. What I've always sought to do is to build into our budgets actual usage budget items. So if I want to start building towards a church plant, I will start encouraging church to direct their funds to planting, which doesn't just sit in a bank. It actually goes to a plant or to Geneva or somewhere, so that we begin to build up that amount that is going each year to a plant, so that when we do our own plant, we just redirect that to our own plant.
Okay, now that makes a lot more sense. So let me ask you something on a budgeting level, or maybe from your experience with EV. When did you get to the point where you started to say, okay, a portion of our budget has to go towards planting? So either giving to somebody else, or we're ready to start the core work that needs to go towards planting a new congregation.
Yeah, we just never operated like that. We've never operated like that. It's we have another. I brought a philosophy of the way we think about mission giving, giving that's outside of us, where we don't set aside a portion of our general giving to anything. The only way money, if you give into the bag or in direct debit into the general fund of EV, it goes to the operations of EV. If you want to give money for the sake of a church plant, you need to designate that it goes to that plant, and we direct straight there. We don't ever tax general giving for any other purpose. The danger when you start to do that is you take responsibility out of the hands of a congregation member in terms of their support. Instead of, we want to support the kings in France, missionaries that our church supports. Well, if the church council of EV carves up a bit of money and gives it to them, no one in church knows it's happening. No one has their heart connected to it because they're not giving to it. They're just giving to a central fund. Whereas what we do is say, now we'll set a target. We want to reach $13,000 per year to go to the kings. We put it to you to give. And you need to designate the giving to it. And if you don't designate enough to it, we'll bring news to you that we're not reaching our target for this. That way the prayers go with the giving, and responsibility for giving and thinking broadly as Christians is in the hands of every congregation member. So the whole different conception.
Yeah, look, that's wildly different, I guess, from what most people would think about in terms. So let me then put it to you in those terms. When did you start thinking? What was the time frame? Do you focus your finances just on yourself for a period of time, or do you always, I'm starting to get the sense that you always had an outward look. So when did you start saying? When did it? Day one core group?
Yeah, day one core group. Yeah. So we were always thinking, I'm seeking to nurture people in what it looks like to be a mature Christian, which is that you give to fund the mission locally as your primary concern. But you are always thinking, I also want to give to the broader Christian work, whether nationally beyond this local region in this country or across country borders and so we have always encouraged people to give to target their money into other places from the very beginning. And then it's a matter of, do I mix that up? What's the mix and so on? These are other questions, of course. In terms of church planting, the other thing to bear in mind is, so we resolved to plant a church every 5 years. That is an independent church separate from us. We've planted internally, so new church congregations more regularly. But the first plant we did was Lakes Evangelical Church. And we didn't raise funds for it. We rather budgeted in the year that it was happening, that we now target people to encourage to get their giving to go to this thing. And the 30, 40 adults who went took their money with them. So there's your budgeting. You don't need to raise thousands and thousands of dollars to have a bank account. As soon as you do that, you cut the nerve of congregational awareness that their money's critical. As soon as you have that fund, I'm sitting here going, well, they've saved up for it. I don't need to sacrifice. And I want to keep getting a direct sense of my money is needed all the time to directly make this thing work.
Andrew, that's just like a complete conceptual shift. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. We're going to put up an email address in a moment so that people can actually send more questions in for us. But once again, thanks very much for your time. We'll look forward to the next one.
Yeah, pleasure.